All right, welcome to the party, pals. GRC Mafia. Hope everybody's having a great week. We have now made it to Tuesday. Tomorrow we do have our GRC Let's Get Technical, which is going to be going over like the fundamentals on DNS for domain name service, and then also how you can set that up as well. How's everybody doing? I see 8-Bit, Vince, Jeffrey, B-Dubs hopping in chat already. GRC Mafia. So out the gate, we're all here to break down barriers, foster collaboration and community, working towards a more secure future together. Definitely a learning and growing environment. If you would like to come up on stage, you're more than welcome to do so. Just let me know and I can drop the link for that. You do not have to turn on your video, just a microphone's good enough. If you want to ask questions, join the conversation directly. Now, if you'd like to share your personal LinkedIn or other social media, the best place to do that is inside of our Discord server, which I'm dropping the link for right now. You just join our Discord server, go to the live chat channel, and then you could drop links in there for your social media, or if you wanted to share resources or otherwise as well. If you do share something that you don't want to be public, definitely reach out to me on Discord or LinkedIn. You can also contact me at contact@studygrc.org. I definitely want everybody to be comfortable with asking questions, sharing resources, even if it doesn't pertain to exactly what we're talking about. Worst case scenario, we could loop back around to that. All right, let's see here. And then, of course, we also have B-Dubs' website. Not only is it B-Dubs going through and publishing an article every single Monday with a video walkthrough as well, but also doing the CISSP study group on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So tonight at 6 p.m., B-Dubs will be running that CISSP study group, which I believe, if I'm not wrong, is going into domain 3 now. And then also we'll be publishing our giveaway on Thursday. Every single month we have a giveaway that's sponsored by cyber.com. And we're trying to figure out like, what are we going to do this month? Also, you can check out our website, studygrc.org, for the rest of the platforms we stream to, along with our calendar for the most up-to-date information, and also the resources page as well, which I'm hoping to reorganize that resources page to be able to put a lot more information on there, make it more beneficial for the community while trying to keep it clean and easy to use. Let's see. Let's go ahead and move on over. And so today we were going to go through and just do like the final portion of this compliance assessment with CSF. So you can see under compliance, we went ahead and started an audit for a few videos now we've been going through. We've started with flash mode. So if I open this up, welcome to the party, pal Josh and Bentech, GRC Mafia. So underneath this assessment here with CISO Assistant, which let me drop that as well. We started out on flash mode, and then what we were doing is just going through using the filters. We started with like the not applicable, the partially compliant, and then the non-compliant. The non-compliant is what we have been working through. And so you can still see here that we have these 11 to do under identify and 18 to do under govern. I may knock that out real quick. There were a couple different things that I want to showcase though. Some of these different exports are pretty neat. I'm going to actually export this in Word as of right now, so we could take a look at that formatting and so forth. And then there's also action plans. So I'm going to go ahead and export that as a PDF, and we'll take a look at that as well. So let's see here. So I'm going to pull those up in a moment. But this just gives us a good idea of like, okay, now we need to figure out how we're going to go about these ones that we don't have. Because you could see a large, overwhelming amount we do not have anything on. So over 75%. And then there's a couple other cool features, just like on the dashboard here. So the controls and so forth, govern. I think I was showcasing this last night. And then let me go back to this compliance side here, because I believe that's based off of just the compliant, partially compliant, and maybe not applicable. Yeah. 13, 7, 5. Bam. Non-compliant items 80, evidence 0. Oh. Bam. And then we also have multiple other areas here too, because there's also a whole area for risk. So risk assessments as well. We'll also need to go through and do this too for the risk scenarios. All right, so I'm going to open all of this. I'm going to open this up here. So this is based off of that export. So this is the recap for this compliance check. So this is one of the different methods here. And I'm also going to pull up that Word document as well here in a second. I got to throw that into Google Drive. There we go. And so this actually looks really similar to, oh, I should export it in Excel too, so you guys can see that side of it. Yeah, so also OSG, I believe, is the package for Ubuntu Pro, which allows you to go through and apply compliance for the CIS framework, for the CIS 8.1. And it also exports files just identical to this as well, where it's all outlined on exactly what the examples are, what the controls are. I think this could be formatted a little bit better, maybe. Maybe make the some titles in here or something. But still, it's a full export of what we have so far. I do see that this just has, okay, so this does have each section, including not applicable as well, it looks like. Yep. But I also don't see a sort on this either. I think this is just start to finish it from govern down to the recovery. Let's see here. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull up this Word document as well, so you guys can take a look at this. So this might look a little bit more pretty. Let me see how well you guys, yeah, you guys can see that pretty well, I think. I'll go ahead and close that out. I'll zoom in a little bit. So what would be neat, in my opinion, is if you can go through and customize this. Of course, this is a Word document, so we could go through and modify this however we would like. But off the bat, I mean, I think it looks pretty good. It is saying that there's no profiles. Initial CSF compliance check, the auditors on it. It's not using the names, just the email address. That's different. A little bit of a formatting issue there as well. But this covers quite a bit here. So summary, audited scopes, security controls, full action plan. Bam. And so this is kind of what I wanted to cover today, is we do still have some more controls to knock out on this page over here. I just wanted to double check. So we have 18 to do and 11 to do for govern and identify. But I wanted to review these final documents as well, so that way you guys can also see in this video how this would look like when we start exporting this out as well, to put into a final report to share with others for documentation, record keeping, and so forth. And all of this would still be customizable, at least because it is a Word doc. So number of requirements, 106 from the CSF, 3 compliant, 80 non-compliant. Nice little graph here as well. That's pretty neat. But you can also see, I don't know if you guys can see it here, but there's also still a formatting issue just because of how close that is for not assessed. or the title for the chart itself. This could be an issue with importing into... Oh, and is that in the footer? Or did I just move that? Oh, there we go. This could be an issue just on Google Docs as well. Comments. Audited scopes. That's pretty small there. Here. Do that. Fit. Bam. The percentage indicates the completion of each section based on the items marked as compliant or not applicable. Our spider web does not look very good at all right now. Oh, and then we also have the auditor's notes. So there's comments here and so forth. However, and so that's for each category it looks like, but it doesn't look like it took any of the comments that I had put in there. Overview, security controls, main priorities for P1, full action plan. All right, so now we can go through and figure that part out. Let me go ahead and move this back over. And then I'm going to double check chat here. And then we'll start lining out some of these last items here. Welcome to the party, pal, Rania. Also, Cybercycle's hopping in, GRC Mafia. Welcome to the party, pal, Yalamed. All right. So now if we go through, I'm going to look at just partially compliant. In progress. And I'm just going to select one of these controls. So the organization mission is understood and informs cybersecurity risk management. Partially compliant. And you can see the comments that I added down here as well. All right. Bam. Yeah, so I guess we'll just go through on these last ones that we have. So we were under not compliant, to do, and then identify. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go through these last ones here that we need to go through. And then basically at that point, then we would go back over everything and say, okay, this is our action plan. So then I don't know if we'll have time for that today. But worst case scenario, I can just do another video on it later this week or something, or this weekend, just so that way we have that as well. Because that's going to be a pretty large video too. It was like 2.5 hours to go through all of the controls in the first place. So that's going to be the next stage as well. All right, so underneath identify, risk assessment, the authenticity and integrity of hardware and software are assessed prior to acquisition and use. Welcome to the party, pal, PBO. PBO, are you going live tonight? PBO typically goes live every single Tuesday night on Eastern time. Looks like PBO's going over AWS config tonight. Bam. I'm going to drop a link to this video for tonight as well. And so it says 8 hours from now. And so that's 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time. All right, so one of the examples for this control here, assess the authenticity and cybersecurity of critical technology products and services prior to acquisition and use. All right. Authenticity and integrity of hardware and software are assessed prior to acquisition and use. So that could definitely be a little bit difficult. So especially, I mean, if you're buying from a known, supplier, Dell, HP, so forth, then that might be a little bit easier. But also software could be an issue beforehand. But I'm assuming, what this is kind of going along. I didn't like that example for it though. I'm going to go back over here. So if I open this back up, to do, the only example that they have for this one is assess the authenticity and cybersecurity of critical technology products and services prior to acquisition and use. I feel like that's pretty vague. That would be, like a business impact assessment to an extent. Not only verifying that it's legitimate, but what kind of an impact does that add to us? What type of risk does that add? So that really feels like it just goes into our third-party risk management. And so I'm still going to mark this one as in progress because this is still something to where we need to have this on our, acquisition and when we're adding new tools for software or we're getting hardware and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and put, no documentation exists. Should be included in our third-party risk management, which also I'm throwing in software for a third party as well. So our third-party software, because that's primarily what we use as third-party software, SaaS products, I'm throwing into our third party as well. And then that's not compliant in progress. Moving on to this next one here. So processes for receiving, analyzing, and responding to vulnerability disclosures are established. You guys may not be familiar, but there's also this entire thing called a security .text, which is typically what you upload to your website. There's a really awesome website here that's called securitytext.org. I think it's a really awesome website. I'm throwing this out there because this is an awesome resource related to this control. And so what this does is it just provides a document that's available to security researchers or otherwise that can access it on your website. This is becoming like a standard thing at this point. And this website here not only explains to you what a security.txt is, but then also it can help you develop a complete one on what should be included. And then you can just export that and then throw that up on your website. And moving back over here, so you can see for receiving, analyzing, and responding to vulnerability disclosures are established. So assign responsibilities, example 2, assign responsibilities and verify the execution of procedures for processing, analyzing the impact of, and responding to cybersecurity threats, vulnerabilities, and incident disclosures by suppliers, customers, partners, and government cybersecurity organizations. And see, one interesting thing that's not stated there is, so it's talking about from suppliers, customers, partners, and government cybersecurity organizations. It's not talking about like, a gray hat hacker or, if a user just happens to come across something. Example 1 there is conduct vulnerability information sharing between the organization and its suppliers following the rules and protocol defined in contracts. So this is another one where we should probably have this implemented as well, somewhere in our policies. And I'm just going to actually copy this. Process needs to be defined and documented. All right, and then moving on to the next one here. And if you guys have any questions or anything else, definitely drop those in chat. Even if it doesn't pertain to what we're talking about now, we can always circle back around to it or otherwise. Now moving on to the identify, risk assessment, 06. Risk responses are chosen, prioritized, planned, tracked, and communicated. So an example of that would be apply the vulnerability management plan criteria for deciding whether to accept, transfer, mitigate, or avoid risk. Example 2 is apply the vulnerability management plan's criteria for selecting compensating controls to mitigate risk. Example 3 here is track the progress of risk response implementation, such as plan of action and milestones, POAMs, risk registers, risk detail report. And so we are going to be using POAMs. We also already have a risk register at this point now too. Correct. Yeah, Josh. So I'll showcase that in just a moment here. So like this risk response are chosen. So I'm not using the priority tag. Technically, I'm just using it by a list. So risk response chosen, prioritized, planned, tracked, and communicated. So that's going to be another one. So rather than going through and enabling scoring, I'm using just the status. So the status I'm doing either done and marking out what the result is. So like if it's not applicable or we're compliant or otherwise, I don't need to come back. I just mark it as done and make sure that the results filter properly. Otherwise, I'm changing it from to do over to in progress. And so in progress is what I'm using to identify that, oh, we're still working on this particular control. And that's how I'm filtering this out. You can also enable scoring here, where we can go through and mark out like where we're at on the profile, on the tier. But then this allows me to filter as well, and then also throw this up on our to-do. So in progress, not compliant. This is going to be another one where chosen, prioritized, planned, tracked, and communicated. And this is for risk response. So in progress, not compliant. All right, moving on to this next one. Potential impacts and likelihoods of threats exploiting vulnerabilities are identified and recorded. So an example of this would be business leaders and cybersecurity risk management practitioners work together to estimate the likelihood and impact of risk scenarios and record them in risk registers. So that's something we've already worked on. Enumerate the potential business impacts of unauthorized access to the organization's communication systems and data processed in or by those systems. Account for the potential impacts of cascading failures for systems of systems. The cascading failures for systems of systems. All right. That third example sounds a little weird. But yes, so we are already working on a risk register. Also, if you didn't catch it, we do have a risk register playlist. The first couple of videos are the most important on how to learn more about risk registers. And the second video is actually going through and building it out and kind of explaining the spreadsheet itself. Then we went through and imported that into CISO Assistant as well. A risk register really should be a living document. I believe NIST actually dictates that, oh, you should review that at a minimum annually, I believe is what NIST actually states. But I feel it should be way more often than that. And so this is going to be another one in progress, because also like the other thing that I want to get implemented is within our actual information security plan or otherwise, we can actually dictate that, oh, you must review, review and improve, take action upon our risk register at a minimum of once a month or whatever it is, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever we want to throw in there. Welcome to the party, pal, Chef RG. So documentation for review, improvement, and action needs to be developed. And then I mark this as in progress, not compliant. And then also we have a question over here too. Yalamed asks, what are the pros and cons, in your opinion, on having multiple information security plans by department versus one large policy when doing an assessment? I think that really depends on the size of the organization in particular. So, typically an information security policy is organizationally wide. So, and there's a reason for that too, because that's a high level from the top down stating, you must follow this. It's not, you could of course tailor it a little bit more if you have that per department. I think it would be more difficult to manage. When you look at policy development, it's a lot harder to manage when you have, if you have 10 different departments, and then you have to go through and review each one of those and update those and everything else as business changes. That could definitely become pretty cumbersome. So I don't think it's necessarily a negative. I think especially a large organization may opt to do that. But for a smaller business of like less than 1,000 people, I don't feel like that would be a benefit, to be honest. I think that would just hinder operations, make it more difficult to manage. And then that could also make things less clear as well. What if somebody's working between multiple departments? So, yeah, that should be a high level document in my opinion. All right. What are your guys' thoughts on that as well? Anybody else can go through and answer, what your guys' opinions on that as well. Let's see. So to do IDRA 03. So we're under identify, risk assessment for the NIST CSF 2.0, and then internal and external threats to the organization are identified and recorded. So first party and third party risk. Use cyber threat intelligence to maintain awareness of the types of threat actors likely to target an organization and the TTPs they are likely to use. Example 2, perform threat hunting to look for signs of threat actors within the environment. Example 3 is implement processes for identifying internal threat actors. So this is a little bit more difficult for a small nonprofit to work with. Not only is cyber threat intelligence expensive and time consuming, but then, maybe we could, like example 2 is perform threat hunt. The second part of example 1 is use cyber threat intelligence to maintain awareness of the types of threat actors likely to target the organization and the TTPs that they are likely to use. We could use something like OWASP top 10 for the web stuff, and there's some other resources out there too on the most common threat vectors or attack vectors. Welcome to the party, pal, Space Tacos. And so this is one that we may become partially compliant on, or maybe do an exemption on to an extent. and then also perform threat hunting to look for signs of threat actors within the environment. That's another one that's a little bit more specialized as well. Definitely not really on the GRC side of things. Implement processes for identifying internal threat actors. And so this is one where we may have to just tailor this one out entirely. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark this one as in review, not compliant. And I'm going to put, OWASP ability and other open resources possible, although no process currently exists. And the ability may not be feasible. And so I'm just marking that one as in review, which I believe is the first one I've done that to, just because I'm not comfortable with our ability to be able to do that at this time. And let me know if I answered your question there too, Lamed. So now we're moving on to identify asset management, and we're on AM 08. So systems, they definitely gave quite a few examples here. Systems, hardware, software, services, and data are managed throughout their life cycles. So this is also where like a data management policy comes in. It's also talking about software and services as well. So we need to manage that data throughout the life cycles. So like one of the examples, I'm just going to randomly pick like 3 different examples out of these 9 that they provide. But example 1, integrate cybersecurity considerations throughout the life cycles of systems, hardware, and software and services. Example 2 is integrate cybersecurity considerations into product life cycles. Example 5, properly configure and secure systems, hardware, software, and services prior to their deployment in production. Example 7, securely destroy stored data based on the organization's data retention policy using the prescribed destruction method, and keep and manage a record of the destructions. So this is something that we're already working on. So we have drafted our policies. We're actually going to start reviewing those starting next Monday. So for, I believe, the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll be working on just policies, reviewing those drafts, trying to knock out 4 or 5 per video. I also see that example 8 here mentions sanitization as well. So this is definitely something that we want to have. Thankfully, there's not really anything confidential that we work with or sensitive. But still, this is still a good thing to have regardless. So I'm going to go ahead and still mark this as in progress, not compliant. I'm going to go ahead and put, policies have been drafted for life cycles, although in approval process. Because what we're going to do starting next Monday is actually review those policies and then provide feedback and so forth, get them improved a little bit more maybe, while we also talk about what their purposes are. And then I have to submit those to the board for Study GRC, which we have 4 additional board members, and then we actually have to vote those in, so that way we have that buy-in as well. So the policies don't mean anything if the top-down don't, if the top, board, C-suite does not actually have buy-in for those. And also they need to understand those too. I think okay, let's filter that out again. So identify asset management 07. Inventories of data and corresponding metadata for designated data types are maintained. So example 1, maintain a list of designated data types of interest, personally identifiable information, protected health information, financial account numbers, organization intellectual property, operational technology data. Example 2 is continuously discover and analyze haddock data to identify new instances of designated data types. So inventories of data corresponding metadata for designated data types are maintained. So this has to go along the lines of data classification. And example 3 there, I think, says it better. So assign data classification to designated data types through tags or labels. So this is another thing I definitely want to implement as well. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that as in progress, not compliant. So policy has been drafted, pending approval. Data classification is to be implemented. All right, and then AM05, assets are prioritized based on classification, criticality, resources, and the impact of the mission. So example 1, define criteria for prioritizing each class of assets, apply the prioritization criteria to assets. Example 3 is track the assets' priorities and update them periodically or when significant changes to the organization occur. So this is another really important one too. So we need to not only understand the assets that are out there, asset management, asset inventory, and so forth, but we also need to classify those based on, their resources, how important are they, what type of data do they have, what impact do they have to the mission overall. If we lost them, something happened, different scenarios occur, which is where that prioritization criteria comes in as well. So that is another important one, which is also something that we started doing with our third party, which I'll actually show you in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and do in progress. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this one out as well and impact. So then list needs to be developed for classification, criticality, resources, and impact to the mission for assets, based on asset. Including regular review schedule. Marked as in progress, bam. Also here we have Cybersecurity responding as well to Yalamed. So the question asked about ISPs, depending on the scope and how that reasonably scales, you may get in the weeds having too many caveats in departmental level policies, thus monitoring can be tricky. Yeah, that's kind of my thought process, is I think it would cause more issues than it would help. So I would try to vote against that personally. I could see how that's where you would have procedures, is you have your policies at the top that are actually dictating you must do this, you must do that. And then you can also implement your procedures for departmental. So that way, maybe the process is a little bit different for each one. Or even if you need an exemption for a particular department, let's say you have an enterprise and they have a malware department where they're working with live malware. Okay, well, let's do an exemption that says, oh, okay, we have this lab environment that's disconnected from the internet. It has no Wi-Fi card. It's incapable of connecting to any internet or otherwise. We've taken out the Bluetooth and whatever else is on that device. And so it is truly air-gapped, and therefore we do not have to have antivirus software enabled on that device. And so you can mark that in the actual procedures as well, and you can also add an exemption to your overall to weed that out as well, rather than doing a information security policy for each department, which I think would just be, ineffective, really. Yeah, I did think that they meant internet service providers at first as well. So there's like two common phrases for that. So there's ISP and then there's also SSP. And I'm dropping both of those in chat. So we have information security policy and then also system security policy. And I feel like an SSP is more common for larger organizations. Yeah, and like Cybersecurity mentions too, that it's like managing a AD group policy, baseline policy settings at a higher level, and then system app specific settings closer to the OU. Yeah, exactly. So you have your overarching policy itself, and then you can go ahead and you can have procedures at the departmental level to modify and actually that's one of the main differences between policies and procedures is the fact that you have that overarching, you must follow this. And then at the procedural level, you can actually dictate like, this is how we're going to meet this requirement that's outlined in the policy for the whole organization. And then if you do need an exemption or otherwise, then that's when the engineers or otherwise would talk to the GRC team and say, hey, we're working with live malware here. We can't have antivirus installed. Like, what the hell? What do you expect us to do? How do we do our jobs? And then you would go through and have to weed that out, rather than having an information security policy for each department. Yeah, system security plan. Let's see here. Pull that off. All right. And so we're knocking these out here. Oh, geez, this time flies by quick. Wow. All right. I thought we were like 20 minutes in and we're 46 in. Asset management, identify, AM03, representations of the organization's authorized network communication and internal and external network data flows are maintained. So example 1 is maintain baselines of communication and data flows within the organization's wired and wireless networks. Example 2 is maintain baselines of communication and data flows between the organization and third parties. Example 3 is maintain baselines of communication and data flows for the organization's infrastructure as a service, ISAS. IaaS usage. Example 4, maintain documentation of expected network ports, protocols, and services that are typically used among authorized systems. This is also a really good control as well. So having the baselines is so important. Yeah, so we were just talking about policies and procedures. There's also another thing for guidelines and also baselines. And so like it's dictating out here in the examples is we need to actually dictate like, oh, okay, our workstations are going to have these configurations. These are the password requirements. This is how long the timeout is before the user is prompted for login again. The computer goes to sleep after, 10 minutes of an activity, whatever it is, it's outlined. And this also applies to software as a service and everything else as well. Included in baselines may be MFA, password requirements that are actually in the configuration. So, and this could be, like I said, software at multiple different levels, actual infrastructure as well, like on a server itself. This could also be antivirus, like our baseline is, we use Norton or we use Windows Defender or whatever as well. Inside of the baselines too, we can also have our software that's utilized. So our baseline software is going to be, we use Microsoft Word, only allowed to log into the work account, and so forth as well. And so these baselines are really important, not only for the teams who actually deploy this, but then also for that auditing process as well, because then when an auditor comes in, you get your copy of the baselines, and then you could say, oh, okay, this is what we're supposed to have, and then this is what we actually have. So welcome to the party, pal, Tech Ricky. Tech Ricky should come up on stage. That's what I think. Tech Ricky is an awesome individual. Welcome to the party, pal, GRC Mafia. Yeah, so I love this one for baselines. This is a really important one as well. So implementation of baselines is required to meet Yeah, and if you have any other questions or otherwise, Yellow Med, definitely drop them as well. The Discord server is also available, so I'm going to keep going for about the next 10 minutes or so, looking at this and so forth. That's one of the issues with scheduling out the videos is that we're trying to go through these, but these videos are scheduled ahead of time. So now we're looking at having to throw in another video to actually finalize this assessment. Just because of the time that it took us to get to this point here. So we are very, very close, but it looks like we're going to have to do one more video in order to complete this as intended. Inventories of software, services, and systems managed by the organization are maintained. All right, so we were just talking about our asset inventory as well. So that's pretty much what it's outlining. And so asset inventory could be numerous things. I think a lot of people get under the assumption that, oh, our asset inventory is just what we physically own. But that could also be software. You may have just what I've actually seen is a spreadsheet. On one sheet, it says, you know, our workstations. On another sheet, it's mobile devices, and they separate it out. Software on another sheet, all inside of the same work book itself. So one example here is maintain inventories for all types of software and services, including commercial, off-the-shelf, open source, custom applications, APIs, and cloud-based applications and services. Constantly monitor all platforms, including containers and virtual machines for software and service inventory changes. Example 3 here, maintain an inventory of the organization's systems. And so another thing that's implemented with this, so in CISO Assistant, we are using the third-party section here, but there is also, I might not swap over to it right now, but there is a section in here as well for the assets. So we can go through and we can document our entire asset inventory inside of CISO Assistant as well. We can also assign those as control types into our assessments as well. So this is definitely another thing that we need to do. So asset. Yeah, so it's just talking about the inventories for software, services, and systems. Asset inventory needs to be developed and maintained. And I mark this as in progress, not compliant, because that's not something we actually have right now. We did go through and start documenting out our third parties and what solutions they provide for us, but that's only part of that pie there. So we need to also go through and list out what devices do we use, what other services do we use as well, and so forth, and software. Now, AM01, inventories of hardware managed by the organization are maintained. So this is exactly what we were just talking about a moment ago as well, is maintaining that. And this, in the example that it was given, was including Internet of Things devices, so IoT devices, which means Internet of Things. That could be a temperature device. There's even some like AC or heating devices that are now wireless, so that could be an Internet of Things. A Ring doorbell camera is an Internet of Things. There's a lot of different things like that. At a lot of these farming locations in North Dakota in particular, they also have temperature gauges and so forth that are wireless and could be considered that are Internet of Things as well, that monitor the humidity, the temperature, and so forth of the grain. So there's a lot of different things that follow underneath that. So I'm going to mark this again as in progress, needs to be developed and maintained. In progress, not compliant at this time. And so this is another one that we'll circle back around to as well. We are coming down to the last few minutes. If you guys have any questions, definitely drop those. We are knocking into the govern section here with 18 on the to-do list here. So, it looks like most of these are underneath cybersecurity supply chain risk or risk management. Let me check. I'll go ahead and do one up here. So let's look at roles and responsibilities. So underneath organizational context for the govern function, then we also have roles, responsibilities, and authorities. We have RR04 for cybersecurity is included in human resource practices. So an example of this is integrate cybersecurity risk management considerations into human resource processes. So personnel screening, onboarding, change notification, offboarding. Example 2 is consider cybersecurity knowledge to be a positive factor in hiring, training, and retention decisions. Example 3 is conduct background checks prior to onboarding new personnel for sensitive roles and periodically repeat background checks for personnel with such roles. I think that's actually something that may not be as often done, actually, is you may have your initial employment background check, but I've also been with employers who they did their onboarding background check, but they never did background checks after that. So it's particularly noting out for sensitive roles. So if you have access to sensitive information or otherwise, then maybe it's not a bad idea to do a background check. Another common thing I've seen too is also a credit pull. So actually checking credit. So if you work with large sums of money or you have access to large sums of money, then conducting a regular credit check for that employee may also need to be done as well. That may, the main reason for that is because if we hire somebody on and everything looks good, their background check's clean, and then their credit check's clean as well, then also, and also Tech Ricky mentioned same with drug testing as well. Yeah, exactly. So this isn't something that should be just onboarding. There should be some type of regular schedule. Another employer I worked with did this every 2 years because this is also expensive to the business itself. So, but this is particularly for sensitive roles. But so working with large sums of money in particular, you hire somebody on, everything looks good. Well, you go through and do it a year later, and wow, that's weird. They have a fraud charge? How the hell did this happen? We didn't know about this. Yeah, that kind of stuff actually does happen. And then also on top of that, the credit as well. So if somebody has access to large sums of money, and then now within a year or whatever it is, and now they're $100,000 in debt or otherwise, maybe they only make $45K a year or something, then that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to move that person out of there, but that may be a situation where they're at a higher risk of being an insider threat. And that could even be a conversation with the employee and be like, hey, we went through our normal processes and we just wanted to make sure everything's okay, and so forth as well. So, yeah, it seems like a lot of businesses don't actually implement that. So I'm going to mark this as in progress, and then I'm going to outline that policies need to be developed, including recurring review, marked as in progress. All right, and then we're under the govern section. We have 17 more to do. We're under roles and responsibilities. I'm going to knock out this last one, and then we'll bring this to an end. We are trying to keep these videos to about an hour, and so that means that we'll be doing one extra video this week, or maybe this weekend, just so that way we can go ahead and knock out these additional 16 that we'll have, and then also showcase what it's going to look like after the fact. So this last one here we're going to do, so adequate resources are allocated with cybersecurity risk strategies, rules, responsibilities, and policies. So conduct periodic management reviews to ensure that those given cybersecurity risk management responsibilities have the necessary authority. Identify resource allocation and investment in line with risk tolerance and response. Provide adequate and sufficient people, processes, technical resources to support the cybersecurity strategy. So fighting for budget is what it sounds like to me. Adequate resources. It seems like, especially in business. Now, also resources could be money, it could be people, it could be software or hardware and so forth. It could be a lot of different things. It seems like, especially on the business side, you're normally fighting for that budget or the people, because also labor is a massive cost to business. So that's a large chunk of that resource capability. And so this is actually making sure that we have the personnel, we have the ability, we have the budget and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and mark this as in progress. And I'm going to do develop outlined policy. I'll just do develop policy, including review process, regular review cycle. So then this may be something where, you know, every quarter we go through and we outline like, oh, okay, you know, we don't have enough over here, or maybe we should pay more attention over here. We don't have somebody doing this or doing that. And so this is a really good control as well. So I'm going to save that out. And then here we are now. So 16 to do remaining under the govern section is what we have left there. So bam. And then I'll go ahead and get another video scheduled, or otherwise, I'm not sure exactly what time or date we'll have that. I'll double check for this Thursday. We may be able to do it this Thursday at 11. I don't think we have anything else scheduled for 11 o'clock on Thursday. We do have our primary meeting Thursdays at 6 p.m. This Thursday at 6 p.m., we do have Evan coming up, presenting cybersecurity on a shoestring. He's going to be dropping a ton of resources for upskilling in the cybersecurity department and so forth. Absolutely amazing individual, not only to ask questions to, but just a person in general as well. Chef mentions, I missed the first couple. I will rewatch. My question is, what is the doc that you're filling out, marking in progress and making notes on? Thanks. So, so we're using a program here called CISO Assistant. I'm dropping the link to it in chat here. And so this is an open source software GRC tool. It's very similar to what a lot of companies pay a lot of money for. And so we went through, and I can show you here as well. I think we've done like 6 videos or 7 videos on this already for this compliance assessment. So we started a initial CSF compliance check. We're using the CSF 2.0. You can easily deploy this out on Docker. We do have a video for that. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you could just search for CISO Assistant, and we have 2 different videos. One is them demoing the product itself and what it is. And then the other video just a few weeks ago was them actually showcasing how you could deploy it in the cloud or in Docker. This is under very active development. They're pushing updates all of the time. 90% of the features are available in their community open source edition. And so I hope that kind of sort of answers that question. And so we went over to compliance because right now Study GRC does not have a program at this time. And so that's what we're developing, is we want to develop our program itself. And we went off, we did our risk register. Now we're doing a compliance assessment in order to see like, where do we fall? So we just went through all of these different controls. There's a 2.5-hour video where we went through on what they call flash mode on the right-hand side here, which is like a slide deck where it goes through all 106 controls, and we mark out like where we fall on that, whether it's partial, compliant, not compliant, or not applicable. So that was the first stage. And then now we've been going through partially compliant, non-compliant, and so forth. And now we're on the to-do for the last few ones. And then we're going to be able to take this, and then we'll be able to develop our action plan to be able to say, okay, we're not compliant with these 80 controls, but these 80 controls we want to implement. So then we're going to develop our action plan and say, okay, well, this is what we need to do in order to be compliant with these controls. And then we'll develop a plan and action milestones that will actually dictate, like, okay, in the next 60 days, we're going to have this implemented. In the next 6 weeks, we're going to have this implemented. This is who's in charge of this project, and so forth, and knock that out. And some of that stuff may be pushed up to 6 months out, because also implementing 80 controls in total, especially as a small nonprofit business, is also quite a feat. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure how far out our POAMs are going to be, but also, especially in business or otherwise, it's not uncommon to have 6+ months out. So it just depends. And then a lot of so we have 11 not applicable controls as well, which means that it just doesn't apply to our business model. So those have been completely tailored out. So, and then also a lot of these we may have to do exemptions on, which you can also see. We can upload evidence. We can also go through and do under governance, I believe. Yeah. So then we could also do exemptions as well and say, oh, okay, well, we want to have this control and everything else, but we can't apply this. Like, oh, we want to force MFA, but this platform that we use doesn't allow us to use MFA. So then we may have to do an exemption on that and say, okay, well, we're willing to accept that risk, and we're giving an exemption to that. And so, yeah, not only am I going through, you can also do this exact same thing inside of a spreadsheet as well. This we're utilizing because there's just so many features that are implemented with it. It's free and open source. And then also, this is also extremely similar to what you would be using in business as well. So using and getting familiar with some GRC tool is better than nothing at all. I probably went into a little bit more depth there than needed, but nonetheless, bam, GRC Mafia. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and bring this to an end. I'll go ahead and get that other video scheduled out and so forth and figure that part out. I'm looking at Thursday at 11. Thank you all for joining in. Definitely let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or otherwise. The Discord server is an awesome place outside of our streams. And then I will also see you guys tomorrow at 11. We're going to briefly talk about what DNS actually is, and then also how you can easily go through and set that up. Like, you could literally get set up encrypted DNS on your devices tomorrow while watching our live stream. So yeah, and Chef, I highly recommend checking this out because I know a couple other people already who found out about CISO Assistant through us, and they've implemented this into their business because they were running off of Excel before. And yeah, like, this is just way better. Not only does it provide you everything that you need, but then also, for an example, you can go through and you can add in PCI, for an example. I know you're more of a PCI person, and so they have PCI 4.0 built into here already. If you have your own custom one, or you already have it in Excel, they also have this experimental feature here for Data Import Wizard. And so you can actually upload your Excel file, and then you can align that with their terms, their verbiage here, and import your Excel document directly through the interface itself if you already have an existing Excel doc. So there's a lot of different things, third parties, solutions that are connected to third parties. Everything's really built into here. And so we are working through the CSF 2.0 right now. I also want to go through and do a GDPR, CCPA compliance check as well. There's also the privacy framework with NIST, and then we'll kind of take it from there as well. But that's going to be after we get the CSF implemented. So big things coming as well. So yeah, Evan's popping in chat. What is this DNS you're talking about? I guess you'll have to check out our video tomorrow at 11, where we're going to talk about DNS and also what it does and how you can get that set up. And like I said, it's extremely easy to do. It's a huge privacy and security benefit that does not require very much time for you to implement. Yeah, Tech Ricky mentions that DNS makes the world spin. Literally, that is just one of the many things that makes the world go around. Bam. All right. Yeah, thank you all for hopping in and so forth. GRC Mafia. I'll catch you guys in Discord and see you guys tomorrow.